Hello, friends. Klaige back, and we need to have a talk about Warzone and leaderboards. So, the original premise for this video was a comment I got a while back, I want to say during the previous patch, asking me what my approach was to Warzone runs. Not what my rotation is or how I do X, Y, and Z Warzone, but what was my mentality? How do I actually approach the weekly Warzone runs and such, stuff like that. And when I first got that comment, I'm like, this would actually make for a really good video discussion because there's a lot of things I can talk about with this that relate very directly to my background in fighting games, my background in speedrunning. Like, I have a lot I could easily talk about on this subject. Now, since I got that comment, I have been finding myself at various points asking myself a question a lot more regularly. And that question is, how actually important is it to be able to put up high scores in Warzone? And how much does it actually matter to know every single aspect of the high end meta, the team setups, your builds, your compositions, the rotations, all of that stuff? And the reason this has been coming up more and more frequently is that, well, one, having to scrap nearly the entirety of the ComWeek guide as I was in the middle of editing it because of new information being discovered in the first week with regards to his rotations and the war zone and the team compositions. That didn't feel very good. I'm not going to lie. It does not feel very good when I already had issues getting information on the character in the first place due to some issues with the testing process that I talked about, and then having to turn around and be almost done after we're well into the patch and having to start over from scratch. That's not fun. It does not feel good. It is not a very satisfying feeling to have your work almost finished and go, cool, just going to wad this up, throw it in the trash, and here we go again. But in addition to that, my guides have been getting more and more regular views since I've been doing videos on PGR now for a good minute. And that is entirely thanks to all of y'all who watch, who send feedback, who ask questions, who ask for clarification. I am extremely appreciative of the fact that my guides get more and more views solely because you all choose to watch. Like, that is a very, very notable thing, and I really, really thank y'all for it. So, with more views have come more folks who take a notable interest in the highest end of PGR's weekly game modes, especially Warzone and especially the leaderboards that come with it, along with what is the highest end tech for team builds, the rotations, and all of that stuff. And I have a lot of thoughts on this right now, and I want to share those thoughts with you all today. Now, before I start breaking down everything I want to talk about here, I want to get some caveats out of the way. One, anything I talk about or say here is not meant to be a call out or a diss track on anyone who feels differently about Warzone and leaderboards and stuff than I do. Everybody enjoys and appreciates different aspects of a game. At the end of the day, I am just a nerd on the fucking internet, and my opinion does not matter. It really doesn't. I am just a dude online. My opinion should not have a massive impact on you positively or negatively in any way. It's kind of how it works when it comes to being a parasocial creature. So, if you find yourself vehemently disagreeing with my opinions in this video, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. No one who makes content for anything of substance will have people watching universally agree with anything they say, nor should anyone who makes content want people to universally agree with the things they say. So, I just want to get this out of the way. If you feel differently than the way I feel about the things I'm about to talk about, this is not a personal attack on you. Do not feel like you have to get in my face about it. I'm not throwing you under the bus. I'm just telling you how I feel. Two, this is very clearly going to be one of those yapping videos. You guys know me. When I have things to say, I'm going to say them way too many times, and I'm going to do it for too many minutes. You know what this is about. You've been warned about what you're getting yourself into by choosing to watch the rest of this video. Cool? Cool. All right. So, the premise I want to base this entire video around: how much does the Warzone and its meta rotations matter in the grand scheme of punishing Grey Raven writ large? How much of this game is actually centered around having good Warzone runs and playing teams at their absolute optimal performance? Well, I think the best point of reference to actually start this conversation with is to look at the actual rewards we get for participating in the Warzone on a weekly basis. So, let's start with the weekly event missions you get for completing Warzone-related activities. So we go down to the weekly missions. There are 4 Warzone missions laid out right here, right? If you complete all 4 of these, here is what you get for a given week in the Warzone. 600 black cards, 200 Hypertune Alphas, 40 Hypertune Betas, and some cogs, which are more or less irrelevant once you've been playing the game for any substantial amount of time, but they're there. They do exist. So, if you add up all these rewards of any substantialness, we're going to ignore the cogs, but let's add up these rewards, right? 600 black cards, that is a grand total of 2.4 pulls on a gacha. At 250 cards apiece, that will get you less than 2.5 pulls on any gacha. The hyper materials you get from this weekly set of missions will let you hypertune 1/2 of a single memory. And spoilers, you can't half hypertune a memory, just in case you were wondering. I guess technically you can between the bottom and the top, but you get my point, the 2 resonances. You could literally hypertune 1/2 of a memory. So, let's go to the actual in Warzone rewards you get for completing Warzone stuff throughout the week. So if you go over to the missions section, so these top missions literally do not matter. I'm not even going to bother including these. These are XP pods, skill points, memory XP, and cogs. Once you have played the game for more than a month or 2, these items don't matter anymore. You will never run out of them, and if you do, cool. They're in the everyday shop for the simulation that you can buy for basically very minimal simulation currency. So these don't even matter. We're not even going to bother counting them. So here's what you can get of actual substance rewards for doing the weekly Warzone missions and completing the score thresholds, right? So you get a grand total of 520 Warshop points and 300 vouchers. And some more cogs, but as we've established, cogs really, really just don't matter in the grand scheme of this. They aren't that important. So that basically gets you a little bit of stuff here. But of course, in addition, there is also the actual rewards for depending on which bracket of the Warzone you are in and where you finish in your bracket on a given weekly basis, right? So let's go through these, and let's start at the highest level. If you are in Legend and you manage to be top 1 or top 2 at the end of the week, right? Here's the maximum payout you get from those set of rewards. 1,500 Warshop points, 800 vouchers, 240 more Hypertune Alphas, 40 more Hypertune Betas. Okay? And then, of course, you get the Vanity Medal and or Chat Box, which are not rewards of substance. They are purely vanity. They have no impact on the game other than you can put them on your chat box or on your profile. That's it. They are not rewards of substance. I'm not counting them towards anything. Let's go to the absolute lowest tier of rewards. If you are in Elite and you do nothing, if you just flat out do not participate in Warzone and you get the absolute bare minimum rewards by doing at least, I think, what do you have to do? 1 Warzone, I think, to be calculated in. You might not even have to do a Warzone. This might just happen as long as you collect the rewards. I don't know, because I haven't not done Warzone since I've been playing. Nonetheless, let's just assume you do the absolute bare minimum. You get the absolute lowest tier rewards possible, right? That takes you down to 700 Warshop points and 150 vouchers. So let's look at this at the top end. So if you get the absolute top level rewards, get everything out of Legend 1 or 2, and get your rewards from the mission tab in the Warzone, here's what you get out of that in terms of total overall rewards. You can use the Warshop points to either buy a chunk of leap chips to leap a character, or you can buy a couple memory resonance picks for automatically picking whatever resonance skill you want on a memory. Usually this will go on the bottom because the bottom has the bigger skill pool, and that's where the important stuff like signature memory or class skill take place. So you could get a couple of those. That's not nothing. And you would get enough vouchers from the Warzone missions to buy exactly 1.2 character shards out of the voucher shop that week. And that's if the character in the voucher shop doesn't currently have all of their discounted voucher shards purchased for the month, because at the beginning of each month, each character has 20 shards available, a discount of 804 vouchers. So if you are at that discount still and you haven't bought out someone's 20 whole shards for the month, you can get 1.2 shards with the entirety of your Warzone rewards if you finish number 1 or number 2 in the highest bracket of the Warzone. Let's look at the difference on if you finish in the lowest section. So if you get the absolute minimum amount of rewards, here is how much less you're getting. You'll get 800 less Warshop points and 650 less vouchers and none of the Hypertune materials. Let's calculate that out to an entire month, right? Let's say this exact scenario plays out for 4 weeks straight, where you're getting the absolute minimum and the people in the top of Legend are getting the absolute maximum. In an entire month, the person at the top of the leaderboard would get 3,200 more Warshop points and 2,600 vouchers and about 2 memories worth of Hypertune materials. In a month, in an entire month, the person at the top gets an extra memory resonance and 3.2 character shards out of the voucher shop and 2 Hypertune memories for a month. For an entire month of the biggest possible divide in rewards. That's really not a big difference. That is such a minimal difference over the course of an entire month of playing PGR that it barely warrants the mention in the first place. It really does not seem like a big difference now when you look at it this way, right? The person who scores the absolute highest score on the Warzone and does it for a month straight without fail will be able to walk away with 3.2 more character shards, a couple Hypertune memories, and be able to either pick up some more leap chips or some memory resonances from the Warshop. That's it. That's your entire reward for being the best player on the server at Warzone in a given month versus the absolute bottom of the barrel player. It's not much. It really, really does not matter and is not that impactful. Those rewards are clearly not that impactful for a single week and not even over the course of a whole month. But let's look at another thing. Let's look at what it takes to actually earn the rewards in Warzone if we're not worrying about scoring in the highest bracket at the highest level, right? Let's look at the missions. To get everything out of the Warshop in Legend, in the highest demand bracket, you have to score a total of 3 million points. If you can get to Legend bracket in the first place at all, if you can get here in any way, shape, or form, you can crash out 3 million points in Warzone by literally slamming your face on the keyboard. Like, you could just head desk your keyboard in each Warzone and you would get to 3 million points if you can already get to Legend in the first place. That's not asking literally anything. This gets even more comical when we look at the weekly awards. Let's look at this. Clear 2 Warzone stages. Doesn't even say clear with any score threshold whatsoever. Just literally don't die. That's it. All you have to do is not die during the Warzone. Don't get your whole team wiped. Not exactly a high-end demand. The other part is get a whopping 200,000 points in Warzone. You can find the nearest cat in your vicinity, put the cat on your keyboard while Warzone is running, and you will get 200,000 points. Like, purely on accident. You will get enough Warzone points to clear out the weekly rewards. So, having a meta team, or even half of a meta team, or even a complete non-meta team, is not a requirement to get the rewards out of Warzone in a given week. It's not even in the ballpark of being required. If you can click on the Warzone mode, if you can find the Warzone menu on your PGR game, you can get the rewards out of Warzone. There is no demand at all to reach the thresholds to get your weekly rewards out of this. I should also note that technically you do get Battle Pass rewards for completing the Warzone. The round missions, aka the weekly missions. There are rewards here for doing, clearing a Warzone stage a couple times. That's part of the weekly stuff. But here's the thing. This only matters if you buy the other battle passes. Otherwise, all you're doing is contributing to all the stuff you get by just doing daily stuff anyway. And at the end of the day, you can clear out a battle pass without ever touching the Warzone. You can clear out the basic intel battle pass during a patch and never set foot in Warzone once. It might be a little tight. You might have to scrape a little bit to get there, but you could do it. So those rewards barely count, and frankly, they only really matter if you're trying to do the bottom two, which you have to purchase with rainbow cards, aka IRL money. So I don't even consider those rewards worth mentioning in the first place when it comes to discussing what it actually takes to get the resources out of the Warzone on a week-to-week basis, right? So, can we all at least agree in some semblance that Warzone, in and of itself, is a very, very small part of the game experience when it comes to playing Punishing Gray Raven, and it's an even smaller experience when it comes to the demands of completing tasks to help you get more resources for other parts of the game, such as rolling new characters on the gacha, or building up new characters and their equipment with your resources. Because no matter how you slice it, it is an undeniable fact that playing at a high level in the Warzone is not only not a requirement to get the rewards from it, it literally provides you almost no extra benefit except for two specific things. One, the slightly higher amount of rewards that you get for placing higher in the upper end brackets like Hero and Legend. Two, staying within the higher end brackets like Hero and Legend for more rewards in the coming weeks. Obviously, if you manage to stay in Legend every week, you have the ceiling of getting the highest tier Legend rewards every week. If you're not staying in Legend, the ceiling of your rewards dips somewhat, but again, the dip is so minimal that it barely is worth discussing. Like, look at the difference between 1 and 2 in Hero and 1 and 2 in Legend. It's 800 vouchers and 240 alphas, 40 betas versus 600 vouchers, 200 alphas, and 30 betas. It's nothing. It does not matter. The difference is so minuscule that it's completely irrelevant. Is there a benefit to staying in Legend? Yes, your ceiling is higher. Undeniably, 800 is a bigger number than 600. This is basic math. Is it a difference that matters in any major factor whatsoever? No, it just doesn't. Simply put, math tells you right there. It just does it. So, to that end, I am curious to ask, why is it that over time I have gotten more and more people speaking on rotations and meta play and builds like it is the most important part of the entire experience of playing Punishing Gray Raven? And I personally have two main answers for why I think this is. One, to those people, it is the most important part of the game. And I want to make something perfectly clear. If you feel that way, if scoring high in Warzone and maxing out runs and fighting for spots in the highest brackets is important to you, that's awesome. I think that is a perfectly valid and awesome goal to have on a week-to-week basis. One of the beauties of gaming is that there are multiple ways to enjoy a game, and there are multiple aspects that may matter to someone else more than it does to a different player. Just a completely common and known fact about playing games. There are multiple ways to enjoy the same game for different people. Two, the leaderboard and the brain rot that comes with it, because that's what leaderboards do to people, all right? So let's talk about this for a second, okay? I have laid out with basic second grade math that the overall rewards for going above and beyond in Warzone exist, but they don't exist in a way that's going to create a massive gap in valuable resources between the absolute best Warzone score of the week and the absolute worst one. There is a difference, and I'm not going to pretend there's not a difference, but the difference is so negligible even at the highest extremes where you were talking about maximum possible rewards versus the absolute bottom tier of rewards, that it is not a valid argument for why anyone should feel the need to put up top-level scores in the Warzone. You cannot look at someone with a straight face and tell them that if they're not trying to put up top-level leaderboard scores in the Warzone, that they are falling drastically behind in getting resources to play the rest of the game, because that is certifiably false. It flat out does not mean that you are going to fall woefully behind because you're not hitting top level scores in Warzone. That's just not a thing, no matter how you slice it. So, why is it that we get a subset of players who feel maximum optimizations and high-end meta knowledge are this incredibly important aspect of punishing Grey Raven? And quite simply, it's this thing. It's this right here. This leaderboard exists, and leaderboards cause brain rot. Straight up. These things cause a type of brain rot. Now, again, I want to reiterate. If scoring well on the leaderboard, perfecting your craft with your Warzone runs, trying to hit maximum wave clears, and doing all these things that are important to you, that's cool. That's awesome. I absolutely 100% get that mindset. I have been doing speedrunning at world record levels for over 15 years. I absolutely understand the appeal that comes with resetting and trying the same thing over and over and over again until you get it exactly as right as you think it needs to be. I've been a competitive fighting game player since 2003. I absolutely unequivocally understand chasing the high of doing something at an elite level. It is an absolute dopamine rush. I get it. I 100% understand why people feel like this is a very important part of their weekly experience in playing Punishing Grey Raven. It is both a perfectly normal mindset to have, and it can be a great way to teach yourself some worthwhile life skills, like learning attention to small details, striving for better execution, expanding your ability to learn and understand things about a hobby that you have or something that you want to learn at a greater in-depth level. There is real-life application to learning things in deep details. These all can be useful things to do with your free time and effort. I personally am an extremely A-type personality. I always have been. I absolutely get the thrill of competition. Again, I have been playing in fighting game tournaments since 2003. I have been speedrunning for a decade and a half. I get it. I understand that thrill, and I understand why it is a high that is absolutely worth chasing over and over again for a lot of people. But when it comes to Punishing Grey Raven, I do not value this nearly as highly as I would as something like playing in fighting game tournaments or doing speedruns. And there are a few main reasons why. One, again, these rewards do not reflect the amount of time and effort it takes to be a top-end Warzone player. They do not reflect the drastic difference in time, effort, study, and practice you are going to have to put in to score well in Legend Warzone. It's going to take a lot of research. It's going to take watching and talking to other players. It's going to take practicing rotations that oftentimes have very demanding execution timings and very specific windows to hit certain things like QTEs. And sometimes even comes with a level of RNG you have to deal with, especially in war zones where there's multiple waves of enemies and sometimes an enemy just wanders away. These are all things you have to deal with. It is very demanding to get good scores in Warzone, especially at the highest end of Warzone in the Legend bracket. And the reward difference for that amount of effort you put in just isn't there for me. I don't see that as a justifiable reason to want to put that much more effort to play at that elite level, because I know what it takes to play at elite levels in competitive gaming. I've literally done it. I've watched it for decades. There is a lot that goes into it. It's demanding. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a gacha game, a fighting game, an FPS, a MOBA. It doesn't matter what it is. Playing Elite takes a lot of time and effort. And in PGR, the rewards in return for that effort do not appeal to me. The change in rewards do not appeal to me. And the notoriety of being a good Warzone player does not appeal to me personally. If it appeals to you, cool. That is perfectly fine. For me personally, it's not there. I don't see it as something worth my efforts. 2, these leaderboards are not built on a concept of fair and balanced competition. Okay? Can we all please understand and agree to this? This leaderboard right here, you cannot sit up in these ranks in the top 10 without one key aspect involved in getting there. And that's real life money. It is quite literally, completely and totally impossible for someone who is a free-to-play or low-spending player to have any remote possibility of getting into the top 20 or even the top 50 of this leaderboard on any given week. Your ceiling for Warzone scores is dictated first, foremost, and almost entirely by how much money you are willing to invest into getting your characters to higher ranks with higher end builds that involve always having their signature weapon, always having max resonances on their weapon, having a cub with maximum skills equipped. All of these things are requirements if you want to reach these levels of this leaderboard. And that means your wallet has to be involved for you to even get involved in the competition, let alone actually try to come out on top of it. Now, before some people get uppity, I'm going to state the obvious here and plainly state that that doesn't mean there is no skill involved in getting higher placings on the leaderboard. I can hand you an entire team of S plus characters right now, and if you don't know how to play them well, or what the finer details are of maximizing a specific war zone, you're not going to outscore someone who does know those things, even if you have a completely maxed out invested team. That's not my point. My point is not to say there's no skill involved in Warzone. That's not true, and that is not what I'm saying. My point is that no matter how skilled you are, how dedicated you are to the finer details of the high-end meta, your rotations, your builds, your QTE timings, you will not overcome players who have higher invested teams than you if they are playing with any level of competency whatsoever. That is undeniable fact. You will not overcome a player with S plus characters playing at SS3, no matter how good you are at the game, right? Like right here. Soul is a player who's consistently in the top 10 on the leaderboard, usually top 5 in the North American server every week. They've done 2 runs and they're sitting in the top 6 right now. It's early in the week, so you can say, oh, that's going to change a lot, and it will, but look at this. SS plus, SS plus, SS plus, SS plus. All of them. All 6 characters, SS plus. Do you understand the amount of money you have to invest to have an entire team of SS plus characters? The only 2 characters in this entire group right here that you can get to SS plus without spending money are Nervatia and Luna. That's it. And Luna only since her leap. Nervatia since her release, which is a whopping, 2 months ago? So if you have a SS plus Luna or Nervatia, you have almost certainly spent money to get there, even though you could technically do it for free. So, my point is that when your determining factor in terms of what your ceiling is for how you can score in the war zone is the amount of money you put into the game, that is not fair competition, nor is it a level playing field. Being at the top of the leaderboard in the war zone does not make someone the best PGR player on that server. It makes them the best PGR player on that server that week, who is also a whale. And if that offends you or bothers you, I'm sorry, you're not being honest with yourself. This is not saying that being a whale means you can't also be an elite player. You can't also be incredibly skilled and put down some of the sickest Warzone runs that anyone in the whole world can do. These 2 things are not mutually exclusive, but you literally cannot even have the chance to be at the top of that leaderboard without being a whale. It is literally not possible. That matters, and it completely changes the dynamic of what a leaderboard means in terms of it having any merit or any importance in the basis of reality. It just doesn't. I don't know what else to tell you on that front. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking, hey, I just want to score my best among people who have similarly invested teams. And again, to that I say, awesome, outstanding. I think that is a perfectly good and reasonable goal to have. And again, it can teach you very valuable life lessons to try and achieve it. It doesn't make it any more important or any closer to being the main thing that most people playing Punishing Gray Raven actually care about. I said it earlier, I am a very competitive-minded person. I greatly enjoy trying to prove to myself and to others that when I think I am skilled at something, I enjoy trying to improve my skill at that something. But that interest evaporates for me the moment that skill is no longer the sole determining factor. And in a gacha game, money will always, always, always invalidate skill if the barrier to entry on said money is not met. If you don't clear the barrier of entry of investing heavily with real life money to get characters to extremely high ranks of investment, you can't even get in the gate to start playing for those high-end Warzone scores. You just can't. Again, this is undeniable fact. All of this is to say, I get why people have leaderboard brain rot. I understand why people think this way. I get the enjoyment in chasing that. I simply just don't think it merits the amount of importance that people who do enjoy this aspect of punishing Grey Raven like to try and insinuate that it has. As my channel has grown, there's been a smattering here and there of people that come in solely to point out that my optimizations in a guide are not correct, or a build is slightly off, or my rotations are missing this thing that I should have known about for the highest in meta scores. And that's more than fine. I openly admit in all my guides, and if you've been watching me for any amount of time, you already know this, but I openly admit that as a solo creator, I'm gonna miss stuff. I am going to overlook something when it comes to playing a brand new character at the highest end of the meta. That's gonna happen. In addition, the meta is guaranteed to shift and evolve and do so many, many times over the course of the first few weeks when a new character comes out or a new team composition comes to fruition, whether it's someone getting an elemental effect, whether it's a character like Hanying getting a leap. There is going to be changes to the meta that are going to evolve over multiple days and weeks before people start figuring out, okay, what's the actual potential ceiling of this team as it sits now? And with all of that going on, this has caused me personally to notice that, especially in my recent guides, I have been getting more and more hung up on trying to figure out what the biggest optimizations are, what the absolute peak of potential meta is, and how to make sure my guide is pointing out people who are, is pointing people closest to maxing out a character's potential, how they can do that. And I'm going to be honest with you all. I think that it has been a notable mistake on my part to let my mindset get caught up in that rat race. There is undeniably a subset of players who greatly value the high-end meta and value the max optimization. They are, by default, a small percentage of the overall player base. There are far, far, far more free-to-play and low-spending players who play PGR for a plethora of reasons than there are people whose biggest focus is on playing Warzone at the absolute highest level and trying to top the leaderboard. Not saying those people don't exist. They absolutely do. But they are a much, much smaller fraction of the player base than even they themselves want to admit. I have always known this, but I've let myself place more and more importance on the meta aspect of my scripting for guides and the presentation of my guides than I think really actually matters in the grand scheme of punishing Grey Raven. Now, I'm going to be honest, normally coming to this kind of self-realization that I am chasing the wrong things with how I make my own content would not merit an entire ass video of me explaining why I've been thinking this way and why I feel I need to be approaching future videos with a better mindset. But it's gotten to the point recently where I am now actively getting accused of not giving my best efforts, or that I don't care enough to do proper research or give people the most accurate, optimal information when I put out my guides. I make my fair share of mistakes. I admit this all the time. I overlook things. I admit this all the time. I have never claimed to be an expert on optimizing PGR play for top meta level. I think it is more than fair to point out when I miss hyper optimizations, when I suggest a build that turns out to not be the most optimal build. I am perfectly okay with people going, hey, I am seeing better results with this, or here is what people in the top of my Warzone bracket are using, and it seems to score better. Those kind of things are perfectly fine. That's information, and information is power, and knowing those things is absolutely worth both my time and the time of anyone else that might watch my guides, right? What I'm not okay with is questioning my effort or my amount of care that I put into the content I make for this game. The idea that I don't care to do enough research or find max optimizations is, quite frankly, one of the most head-ass accusations I've ever gotten on this platform, or frankly, any social media platform. I not only extremely care about Punishing Grey Raven and the quality of my content, I have gone very far out of the way to meet certain expectations of quality for myself that is often to the detriment of my own free time and energy. I want to remind you all of something very important about this channel. YouTube and Punishing Grey Raven content is not my job. This is not my job. It is not my career. I am not underemployed by Kuro Games. I don't get sponsorships to make this content. The only financial gain I get out of doing this is from the content creator program. And that program has no legal binding to it. And it's a program that can completely change its rules or could completely evaporate overnight if Kuro decides they don't feel like it's worth supporting anymore. I have zero guarantee that any video I make is going to give me any kind of financial windfall or return of any value at all. If Kuro Games decides tomorrow that the content creator program is not a worthwhile allocation of their finances, they can nix it, and there's nothing I or anyone else can do about that. I want to make that perfectly clear. And the rewards that I get from the content creator program are, quite frankly, the only reason I can justify putting the amount of time and effort into this channel that I do. I have worked as a private contractor for nearly 20 years now. Every bit of work I have done since 2008 has been either on contract or as a self-employed entity. It is straight up, by pure math, financially detrimental to me to spend the time I do making Punishing Grey Raven videos. I'm not going to bother going into the details of how much money YouTube ad revenue pays out, but let me tell you, for a channel of my size, those payouts are not only not in the same county line as minimum wage, they're not even in the same fucking galaxy. Okay? I have been making content for this game now for a year and a half. This is the most active I have kept my YouTube channel ever by orders of magnitude. The longest stretch I have ever had prior in consistently putting stuff on my YouTube channel was making content for Guilty Gear, especially around Strive's release, and that lasted a whopping 2 months before I completely burned out on it. Like, I just completely lost interest and did not want to do it anymore. So if it's not abundantly clear by looking at my channel that I have a personal stake in giving a shit about this game and the videos I make for it, then I'm never going to be able to prove that to you, and I'm not going to bother trying to prove it further. To put it completely plainly, if I was promised right here and now, if I found a magic lamp and rubbed on that thing, and the genie pops out and he tells me straight up, I will give you $25 for every video you're going to put out from now until the end of the year. Just 25 bucks. 25 bucks a video, and me making videos at roughly the same rate I have since I started making PGR content. So let's average and say 5-ish videos a patch, right? If I got $25 a video for every video I make from now till the end of the year, the amount of money I would make would still not bring the amount of hours I put into the Evernight Beat video by itself to having been worth minimum wage. Okay? That is how little I benefit financially from this channel. For the amount of hours, time, and effort I put into making the content I do. So, when I start getting told that I am neglecting my, and I quote, derelict of duty as a guide maker because I'm not spending an extra 2 to 3 weeks researching everything going on at the top end of the meta for one of my guides, all I can really do is fucking laugh at you. I am not in a position of public office. I am not a civil servant. My derelict of duty when it comes to content creation begins and ends with exactly none. 0. This is why I say that leaderboards give people brain rot. To actively and openly state that you think someone is being irresponsible and lazy by not focusing on a fraction of the game's content in a way that only affects a fraction of the player base is just completely and totally missing the forest from the trees. How many times has someone complained in someone's character guide that the information didn't help them clear clash reflection with a faster clear time? How many times have you seen that? How many times has someone complained about a character guide not helping them beat the boss bully mode without getting hit? How many times have you seen that? I'm going to go out on a limb and say you've seen it basically never. And you want to know why? Because those modes don't have a leaderboard. They don't have a leaderboard. They don't have the thing that makes people convince themselves that the game mode is more important than it actually is. There's no leaderboards there. And even though both class reflection and the boss bully mode give notably worthwhile rewards for going out of your way and playing those modes, you're never going to hear anyone freaking out about how well someone played the modes, or how well or how meta optimized someone's team was for running through clash reflection or running through the boss bully. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. But you put a leaderboard in the mix, you put a leaderboard anywhere in here, and suddenly that shit becomes a sacred cow. It becomes the most important thing in the entire flippin' game. If the leaderboard in the tip-top meta of PGR's Warzone is the most important thing to you when you play this game, awesome. More power to you. You enjoy the game how you want to. The world is a difficult place to exist, especially right now, and if chasing the Warzone leaderboard gives you joy or distracts you from whatever is difficult in life, by all means, go in and have yourself a time. That is one of the many ways you can play Punishing Gray Raven and enjoy your life. If you think it's the sole factor that should dictate for how content on this game should be made, or how people should structure their guides, and that you think it has any more impact than the modicum of rewards that I already listed out earlier that we get from it, I'm sorry to say, you are not being realistic, nor are you being honest with yourself in any way. Warzone is one very, very small part of Punishing Gray Raven, and Punishing Gray Raven itself is a very, very niche game within its own genre. This game struggles to keep content creators because for most people, if the content isn't getting traction or views, they can't justify making it. So if I ever hear someone trying to genuinely say, I don't care, or my effort is lacking, I'm just going to ignore you. Because you're either trolling for the fun of it, or you have your head lodged so far up your own ass that I wouldn't be able to dislodge it with an industrial tow truck. More importantly out of all of this, it has gotten me to realize that I need to lean way more into making my guides closer to what I originally envisioned for them in the first place. And that's helping people learn how characters work at their base levels, helping people learn how to utilize said characters and their teams with a level of competency that will ensure they can get their rewards from the various game modes, and feel like they understand how to pilot the character in any given content. Because, just as a reminder, there is combat in PGR that is not the Warzone. Quite a bit of it, actually. So, to that end, I personally am going to be putting a much larger focus moving forward on my guides, trying to help out the potential for the majority of PGR players, which is to say, I want to make sure my guides are taking care of people who are free to play, who are low spending, who are playing the game at not whale levels, because I would much rather start putting extra effort and time into seeing what I can do with my guide to help folks out who can't afford a signature weapon, or who can't afford to pull for a cub, or who can only take characters to double S because that's all they can do is get one copy and get the shards out of the pain cage shop. I would much rather spend more effort and more time trying to figure out how to help out the lower end of the game than I would spending hours and hours of time to figure out how to make sure the people running a team of pure triple S characters with their weapons and multiple resonances get a slightly higher score on the Warzone. And I say this as someone who very clearly triple S's every goddamn unit that comes out. Like, I am one of the whales. I've made this quip multiple times since this channel started doing PGR content. I know I am part of the Filthy Whale Club. Everyone's triple S. I spend money on this game. I have for a long time now because this game's important to me. I have disposable income. I like supporting something that's important to me. And that's all the reason I need to do it. But a lot of people don't even get to decide they want to do that because a lot of people can't afford it. Because a lot of people right now can't afford groceries, man. So, this is not to say that my future guides are going to straight up neglect top-end or meta information. If there are notable changes or alterations to teams, or rotations, or builds at higher evolutions, I'm going to do my damnedest to make sure that information is in my guides. If there is a drastically different rotation for a character at triple S versus double S, I'm going to try and figure that out and relay that information to you in the guide, because there are people who watch my guides that do take characters to triple S and beyond. There are people who roll on every single signature weapon. But I am lying to myself if I think the majority of people looking for guides on this game are not the ones who are playing at either free-to-play or low-spending levels. Most of the time when people want to learn a character, they're not interested in the guide telling them how to reach the highest wave in a Warzone on the given week. They're interested in knowing how the character works so they can start playing them and get back to playing the goddamn game. Not everyone. Not everyone is looking for a guide for that reason, but a lot of people are. I am also more than willing to continue doing updated team guides or post-guide updates if something ends off totally off base. Like what happened with Teddy, right? Where it turned out that the most optimal team for Teddy was a double amplifier team, and I just did not find that in my testing. I didn't even consider it. I went ahead, did an entire updated ICE team build because that guide lacked critical information at the end of the day. And that's going to happen sometimes. Again, part of the caveat of getting a guide out for when a patch first drops is that you're only operating on information based on what you can test. And what I can test is very limited compared to what it's like to actually play with a character once they're released on a server and you can roll them and build them into your core teams you've already got built. Anytime that kind of thing comes up, I'm going to make corrections. I'm going to make an updated guide. I am not alleviating myself of responsibility of trying to give accurate information. But giving accurate information does not mean that my guide needs to be focused on making sure every single facet of Warzone optimization is the sole purpose of the guide. Does it matter? Yes. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean a fraction of what some people believe it does. And I'm going to stop worrying about that aspect when it's not going to make the guides any better for the people who actually are looking for guides. Because at the end of the day, even if a bunch of you who are very genuine and often tell me, hey, it would be awesome if you could do this, I have gotten amazing suggestions in my comments in the last year and a half. Things that have helped me improve the structure of the guides, improve the presentation of the guides, improve my mindset for how to approach learning a new character. There has been a lot of worthwhile feedback I've gotten in the comments. In fact, the vast majority of my comments are overwhelmingly positive. They're overwhelmingly supportive. And even when I fuck up, people are like, hey, have you checked this? Most of the time, it's very genuine, and it's a community doing community things and being cool about it. And I'm very thankful for that. But even if I want to try and appease this small subset of the PGR player base and go all in on Warzone hyper meta optimization, who am I making that content for? Who cares? The people who are going to do that are going to do it regardless of if I put out a guide telling you how it works. They don't need my help. They do not need my input on how to maximize being a triple S plus player in Warzone, or how to maximize being a triple S3 player in Warzone. Y'all don't need my help for that. And I wouldn't be able to put that much effort into it anyway, because as I've stated to you openly, I don't give a shit. I do not care about maxing the leaderboard in Warzone. It doesn't mean anything to me. And if it doesn't mean anything to me, then I'm not going to be able to put worthwhile effort and care into doing anything with it and making content for it. There is no point in making content you don't give a damn about. The only reason anyone ever does that is for a paycheck. And as I've already established, that's not a thing I get from doing Punishing Grey Raven content. I straight up don't. I just don't. So, I'm more than willing to continue doing updated guides. I'm even willing, if a lot of people want it, to do a, hey, here are some meta optimizations you can do as like a post-guide guide. But, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to have massive demand from people who are being genuine about it to even consider it. Because one, again, to me, it's not an aspect of the game I find interesting, and I don't care enough to keep fighting for it. Two, the more I make that type of content, the more likely I am to get people coming in telling me why my QTE timings are bad and how I'm not doing X, Y, and Z correctly. And again, I don't care. I don't care. It's a gacha game. Your ability to score well is based on your ability to bust out your wallet. I don't care. In addition to all of this, even if I wanted to make this content, the first few weeks of a new character or a new team composition is going to see revision after revision after revision after revision. New rotation discoveries are going to be made. New build discoveries are going to be made. These things all matter, and I'm not going to downplay the significance of that evolution that happens in the upper end of Warzone. But the amount of time and effort and research I would have to personally put in to keep up with those things is not something I feel is worth my time and effort, because there are other things I want to make content on for this game. I am a grown-ass adult with a lot of things to do in any given week, and I am not going to make one of those things sweating about resetting Warzone 500 times to get a better recorded run of a specific optimization in metaplay. I already reset games enough from being a speedrunner. You do not want to know the amount of times I have seen the title screen for Castlevania Bloodlines. You would think I belong in a mental asylum, and you'd probably be correct. But I don't need more of that in the game that I play, because it's personally very important to me, and it's important enough that I have felt the need to make content for it for a year and a half, because I just want other people to have easy access to learning more about the game and getting to know it exists. I am very well versed in the grind for the best run lifestyle, more than pretty much any PGR Warzone grinder has ever done. I promise you I have more hours resetting speedruns than anyone does resetting Warzones. I am more than willing to just state that as blatant hardline fact. You do not want to know the amount of hours I have in my maid speed game. It is an unhealthy amount. I don't want that to be part of this game for me. I don't want PGR to put me in the same mindset I have to put myself into his speedruns. That's not why I play this game. So, TLDR about all of this. If you think my guides suck or that I'm lazy because I'm not going to sweat over scoring 30 million in Warzone instead of topping out at 37 million, that's fine. You are more entitled to your opinion. Feel free to say my content blows ass, and feel free to tell anyone who will listen to you that they shouldn't watch me. That is absolutely your right to do so. But also just note, I don't fucking care. Because you're not the audience I'm trying to help out, because you clearly don't need my help to do what you're already doing. Simple as. Again, if there's mass demand from y'all and you really want me to do some guides here and there that focus solely on the, hey, what is the absolute top end of the meta look like and how do I do it? I'll consider it. I'm not going to completely rule it out, because completely ruling out any type of potential content for a game you are a content creator for is usually not a best practice. But again, it's not interesting to me. I'm not going to have the drive to put the kind of effort into it that I do my other content. And again, I don't particularly enjoy the part of the player base that focuses on this, because they tend to lose the forest from the trees and think this shit matters more than it actually does, even within the confines of the game it takes place in. So, don't blame me for not wanting to bring a new wave of people to my comment section who want to tell me why I suck ass because I didn't use the proper QTE timing in wave 47 of the Dark Warzone this week. You know what I mean? End of the day, if you take nothing else away from this vapid, yapping rant of a video I've made, I hope you take away this. Don't sweat your frickin' Warzone scores so much. And don't sweat the amount of effort that goes into Warzone unless that's something that's personally important to you because you enjoy trying to improve on that part of PGR's gameplay. In the grand scheme, it is not important in PGR. I've already laid it out with the amount of rewards you can get and what it actually encapsulates within the entirety that is the game, Punishing Grey Raven. It is one game mode in a game with literally dozens of them, a story that can likely last you thousands of hours at this point, and event content that literally changes every single patch and adds new wrinkles to the experience in pretty much every single new patch. Many of those experiences involving different takes on combat, where your Warzone meta knowledge isn't going to mean jack or shit because it's not necessary. So, to all of that, I hope I was able to get my point across here. And hopefully it helps some people realize that, wow, there's a time and place to talk about the meta and to focus on hyper-optimizations and building the best teams you can. It is a very, very, very small part of the piece of the whole puzzle that is Punishing Grey Raven. And it's a piece of the puzzle my content has never placed great emphasis on, nor will it ever moving forward. And if that bothers you, hey, no worries, that's cool. It just means my content's not for you, and that's okay. I promise. It's okay. Alright, that is enough yapping. I needed to get this one off my chest. Let me know how you feel about this down in the comments. If you legitly think I've been lazy, or that I'm not trying hard enough, feel free to tell me. Let me know. But just note, if your sole goal there is just to troll me, or to try and start some kind of pointless back and forth bickering session in the comments, I'm just going to block you from commenting on this channel. This ain't my job. I do not get paid enough to deal with people who want to flex their meta knowledge because that's the only way they can feel important when it comes to being involved with Punishing Grey Raven. I'm not going to babysit you. I'm not going to entertain you. I'm just going to mute you, and that's going to be it. I'm going to move on with my life, and you should too. For the vast majority of you who hang out in my comments and come around to this part of the internet, Thank you as always for your feedback and support. I'm always open to criticism and input as long as it comes with some sense of genuineness to it. And if I'm completely off base with this one, I'm sure more than a few of you are going to let me know about it and tell me I'm a moron and I should shut the fuck up. But I have a sneaking suspicion that most people are going to look at my points on this one and likely feel at least somewhat similar about it. So, that's all I got for this one. I have ranted long enough. It is very hot in this office because I can't record with fans on, and I've decided I don't want to sweat anymore. Not in the Warzone or in this office. So, I'm going to get out of here. As always, I appreciate you all. If you want to do YouTube garbage, feel free on the way out. It's always appreciated. It's never necessary. Otherwise, y'all take care of each other. Be good to one another. And I will have more videos very soon. Peace for now, y'all.